This is the Marketing Made Easy for HR Consultants podcast, a show to help independent UK-based HR consultants get a pipeline of perfect fit, high-paying clients without expensive adverts, time-consuming social media activities, or energy-sapping and monotonous networking meetings. I'm your host, Nick Paninsky, author of How to Land Your Dream Client, a book which explains everything you need to know to get every sale and client you ever want. And if that sounds interesting, then make sure to grab your copy from the influential consultant website today. That being said, let's get into today's show.
Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of Marketing Made Easy for HR Consultants with me, Nick Paninsky. Today we've got Shelly Terry with us to talk about content repurposing. Hello, Shelly.
Hello, nice to see you.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for joining me. It's,
Pleasure.
yeah, it's great to have you all with us. Obviously, we've met in the Atomicon Facebook group, and we didn't meet in person last year, but we probably will meet this year.
Yes, in June.
Yeah, it's a great marketing conference.
It's fantastic for so many industries as well. It's just so good to all be in person and give yourself that dedicated time, and whatever thoughts you go in with, you come out with something completely different. It's fantastic.
Yes, yeah. I think the big takeaway for me last year was Jeff Ram. Did you watch the Jeff Ram one?
I didn't get to see him live.
Yeah, he went down so well, they've got him back for next year.
Yes.
Yeah.
I should make sure I see him this year.
You should make sure you see him. He's obviously went down so well because now they've got him back to do it again. But he changed my world. He was talking about giving your clients the the superstar celebrity treatment. That's what he calls it.
Yeah.
Anyway, something I talk to my clients about as well. But anyway, let's get on to content repurposing. So we're talking about creating a long form content, and then we're talking about repurposing it, and then we're going to talk about the strategy of it. So long form content, define that for us, Shelly.
Yeah, it's usually something that just feels a lot longer, harder, bigger than just popping a post up on Instagram. Yep. It's spending hours on a blog and doing your SEO research rather than writing an article. It is doing a video that has more production value than perhaps filming a short. So with a short for YouTube, it's 30 seconds, 1 minute, speaking to camera, and it's done. A YouTube video is going to be longer. It's probably going to need captions and accessibility thought behind it. It's going to maybe need some scripting. It's going to need some structure. So your long form content just needs more thought behind it and takes a little bit longer to do.
Excellent. So I guess the example would be like, obviously, my weekly podcast. That would be a long form content.
Yes. So blogs, podcasts, long YouTube videos, longer articles like a LinkedIn article as opposed to sort of a short email snippet. That said, some people may write very long emails, in which case that would also count as your long form. But it's not going to be, a 3-sentence thread or a tweet.
Excellent. Okay. I guess the big question would be, why would somebody spend time creating that long form content? I mean, I know
when you create short content, it's very snackable. People can watch it. It's bite size. It's easily digested, but it's been and gone. So by creating that longer form content, I like to see it as anchoring content. It anchors your audience to what you're about, what your brand is about, what you want to be known for. It's how you get your thought leadership positioning. It's how you basically it's like a framework, and it underpins every other piece of content that you can put out. But to be able to create such long form content, you have to have the knowledge behind you. And that's why for thought leadership, it's super important.
How interesting. I like to think of, when you're putting content out, I like to think of it as throwing rocks into a pond. Your long form content's like a big old rock and it creates this big splash and all the ripples. And then like a little post that you throw out on LinkedIn is kind of like a little pebble. Won't really create much of an impact. That's the way I like to think of it.
Yeah.
So talk to us about this thought leadership stuff. When you talk there about this anchoring and the positioning, the strategy, what are you talking about there?
If I were to go on ChatGPT and Google any topic, I could produce a video on that topic and seem like an expert in 30 seconds. I can memorize a couple of lines and get something out. Anyone can do that in business. However, I could not go and write an in-depth YouTube script and present it with so much ease if I did not know my topic really, really well. So by being able to create these bigger pieces, people understand that you can't fake it. You can't do that. So for me, I feel like these bigger pieces of study almost are what push the industry forwards. They're the white papers that get shared. They are the YouTube videos that get shared among your peers because you are the expert, you have new viewpoints, you have new ways of looking at your industry. You are the thought leader. You're not the one just creating content about it based on everyone else's thoughts. The bigger pieces of content allow you to think more deeply about your industry so that you can then share that as a head of a, not saying like you're going to be the first for everything, and I don't mean it quite like that, but you do push your industry forward when you give yourself time to produce content which is thoughtful and reflective and helpful.
Okay, excellent. And why should people do this? Like my audience, self-employed HR consultants, some of them have smaller agencies. Why should they create long-form content? What's the benefit?
The exact same reason that any larger company will. We need to stand out. If the nuts and bolts are your service is the same as someone else's, which for the most part, we all do something similar to someone else. Otherwise, there's no market for it, right? So if we know there's an audience, there are multiple people they can choose from. Creating this longer form content helps us connect with them. It helps us to not just show our thought leadership and what we know, but gives them a connection point that is different to someone else. So I run a content and marketing agency, and there are lots and lots of other people who do this. I'm not special. However, how I work with my clients, that individual relationship I build, that is the special part. And the only way you can show that is by showing up online or in whichever channels you're choosing. Maybe for some people it is attending industry events, for example, but you're creating your connection points. And that's why the bigger pieces of content are also really, really important. Of course, the short snackable videos, they show connection points, and that's great. And they're equally as important. But the bigger pieces, because they have that thought behind them, they are about the things you need to share because you've put the thought in behind them. They're not random snippets. There is that strategy behind it.
I like that. Insightful. You speak very clearly. I like that. Sometimes I get people on and they ramble.
I have my moments.
We all do. We all do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I always like to think, when a HR consultant, when they are trying to sell their HR services, and anybody's trying to sell their services, right? As a marketing sales consultant, as a content creation consultant, etc. We're like a terraced house next to another terraced house, next to another terraced house, next to another terraced house. There's nothing that makes us special. So creating that content is one way of standing out from the crowd. And the other way of looking at it is like you're a market stall holder selling your wares next to another market stall holder, next to another market stall holder, next to another market stall holder. Again, you have to stand out. Otherwise, there's no differentiation. There's no reason why someone should buy from you. And that's, I think, where the long form content comes into play.
Yeah. I mean, if going with, I do love a good analogy. Let's say you're going to the supermarket because food is your thing. You have your aisles, and one is labeled whole foods, one is labeled fruit and vegetables. You could imagine that those are your anchor pieces, your big pieces of content. And then on each aisle, you have the shelves of everything else. That's all your snackable stuff. And that's how the repurposing can then work for you. But those anchor pieces tell people what you are about. If you are making big blog pieces or podcast episodes about your core topics, people know that's what you're about. So in your case, your podcast is for HR consultants. That's very, very clear what you do, and you're doing it regularly. And yes, the repurposing is going to be great, all of the content you can get from it. But if somebody is a HR consultant and they're chatting with their peers, it's your podcast they will recommend, not something more broad. It will be yours, your big piece of content. They're not going to send them to a single YouTube short that you recorded last year. They just won't do that. But they will send people to your podcast. So it's the same, you know, because it's a bigger thing, like a blog. Yes, it's lots of articles, but the blog is somewhere you can be sent to. The same with a YouTube channel. They're not going to start on your shorts. They are likely to scan through your videos, like your big anchor content videos you've got, and then they will look from there. So that's another way to look at it. These big pieces of content, your long form content, are easy places for somebody to send their peers to. Whereas the other bits, not so much.
Fair play. I like that. So I guess the next question is, how do people repurpose their content? Because I've just invested in a AI tool called Minvo. So I take my videos that I create when I'm doing my my podcasts. I also put it onto YouTube, actually, put the audio there as well as the video. And then I put that video into Minvo. Minvo cuts it up into miniature videos. So I've not started yet, but next week or this week, the videos start to go out now. So how would someone do that better? How would someone redo purposing content? How can someone repurpose content? Let's go. If I give, last week I did a podcast on ChatGPT. So how would I repurpose that?
So there's the manual way and there's the tools way. So starting with tools, as you talked about Minvo, there are tools you can use which will do it for you. Does it replace a human doing it? No. Is it quicker? Yes. I still think you need a bit of both. So I wouldn't suggest you put it in an AI tool and then just send it out to the world. I don't think that's kind of the right approach. However, some of the tools can be really, really helpful. You could put your transcript. I'll stick with your podcast as the example. You could put your transcript into one of the more paid for tools that do it specifically, or ChatGPT, and ask it to pull out quotes. Say, I would like the 2 or 3 sentence quotes that share what this is about, and it will give you some quotes, and you could use them on Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, simple text based. You could also use those on infographics. So using a tool like Canva, create your graphic, and that could go as an Instagram story.
Or one of those carousels on LinkedIn, hey?
Yes. Yeah, it could also go onto that. So you would say to it, I need 5 points from this text to use as a carousel. What would you suggest? So you can do that. Now, if you're doing it manually, you know what your podcast was about and you know what you need to find. So you could go put it in a Word document, use the find button. You have the find search option.
Yeah.
Go through and find those bits and manually piece those together. Or you can use AI to assist you with that. So that turns into like your really short form stuff. You could also ask it to create a small script from it. And then you could record that as a YouTube short or a Facebook reel. So there's lots of ways that you can use the one piece. You could turn it into an email. It doesn't have to be just an email to your audience saying, there's a new podcast episode out, this is the link. But you can actually write something thoughtful based on your transcript to then at the bottom share your podcast. You can also turn it into a blog post. Yes, you'd need to go through and do your SEO research. It would need to be optimized. It's not copy-paste, but you definitely have so much you can do with that piece of content from one podcast episode.
In terms of that SEO stuff, because this is quite interesting for me, right? I know about SEO, and basics, not an expert, but I know that I know enough. So I do put my podcast into a LinkedIn article, and then I also put it into an SEO blog, and then I give it the keyword and whatever else, and then I make sure that Yoast, you'll know that plugin, right, from WordPress, and then make sure that I get the little green symbols. Lovely that. I love seeing those little green symbols down the side of my screen. So I make sure that I'm ranking for those keywords. So let's talk strategy, Shelly, because I think that's the key bit. Because I think you're right in terms of anyone can create some content, throw it out there, chop it up with Minvo, use AI. I think probably the bit that stands out is the strategy. So talk to us about that.
Sure. So if you were to be in a room full of people and you wanted those people to tell everyone else about you and your business, what 3-4 things would you want them to know about you? As in, what are you the expert in? So for you, obviously, it would be HR, but there may be other things which you want to be known for, your differentiators, the things that make your business a little bit different from the next. And these are content pillars. Now, I'm not talking, some people will say content pillars are things like talking about sales, talking about behind the scenes. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about the topics which make you the expert. What are you an expert in? So you choose 3 or 4 that you want to be known for. So, for example, one of mine is repurposing. And when you saw my website and you had a look through, you spotted that repurposing was on there. So I would like to be known. One of my content pillars is repurposing. So if people were talking about me and my business, I would want them to know that that is one of the things. So you create these content pillars, and that is what you're going to create your content on. So when you have those in place, it makes the strategic planning of your long form content much easier because you rotate through those pillars. So one week I might create a long form video on repurposing. And then the next week I switch to my next pillar, and then the next, and then you just cycle through these so that you are talking about the things you want to be known for in your industry. And this is helpful in your planning then, because you can say, right, okay, I need 2 videos on repurposing, I need 2 blogs on this, and so on and so on. And that means, let's say in the month, you're creating 1 a week, for example. So let's say 4 or 5 long form pieces in the month. When it comes to repurposing all of those, they are all topics that you want to be known as an expert on. They're not random. All of that content going out, all of the SEO work that you've done, it is all framing you, not just as an expert, but just so that people can find you for what you want to be known for, what you want to be found for. Now, it does leave room for more random content. I'm not saying you can't go on and talk about something else, but your long form content sticks within those pillars so that it reinforces who you are and what you do. I don't have any data for this statistic, but it's said that people need to hear something 7 times before they actually hear it. And now marketers are saying it could be up to 9 or 10 times because attention spans are getting shorter.
Yep.
So by creating this long form content that sits within a narrower window of content pillars or content topics, themes, it's easier for people to hear our message and what we are about. And then when we do go on to repurpose that, it's just amplifying that message because the strategy is there in our long form content.
Growing a HR consultancy can be incredibly lonely. Your friends and family pay polite attention, but they don't really get it. And the fear of where the next client is coming from can be incredibly daunting when you've got mouths to feed and a mortgage to pay. All in all, becoming self-employed wasn't quite as fun and easy as you thought it'd be. And I get it, trust me. That's why I've set up the HR Business Success Squad, and I'm inviting you along to grab one of the limited spaces. In the squad, the first thing we do is get laser focused on where you want your business to get to and how you're going to get there. From there, it's all about making progress with one-to-ones, fun competitions, trainings, Q&As, and interacting with a fantastic group of people who are in the same boat as you. They get what you're going through and what you're trying to achieve because they're on the same path as you, so you can hold each other to account. And the best part? There's no contract. The HR Business Success Squad is a monthly pay-as-you-go membership. You can come and go as you please. If it's not for you, you're free to leave. No hard feelings, no cancellation charges, and no early exit fees. So if you're ready to create a real plan for growth with real support and people alongside you to cheer you along as you make progress towards your business goals, then visit the Influential Consultant website today and join the HR Business Success Squad.
Interesting. Love it.
So if you imagine back to your supermarket analogy, let's say on the front of the window, you have your content pillars, so the aisles, and it says Whole Foods, specialists, food around the world. You know, if that's the long form content, whether you're going to walk in that shop or not. And you'd walk to the next shop and then it says, local fruit and veg, sustainable, meats. Oh, that's the one I want. That's the one you walk in. That's how your long form content is going to work for you, because it will get that whole message out there about what you do.
I'm gonna have to use the editing tool to remove that big old pause there. I was just letting that all sink in there. Yeah, so I guess my question is, like, when you talk about this strategy, what you're talking about, so for example, my audience is a HR consultant. They create long form content. There is no point them talking about things which their target audience don't need to know about from them, right? So if I have a HR consultant who works with accountants, she knows that they have specific HR problems, and she knows that they probably don't worry about other certain HR problems. So she wouldn't need to talk to them about these, right?
Exactly. It might be that they only talk about, things from a financial perspective, things that are relevant to somebody who's working with accountants. It may be even, they are particularly ethical in the way that they do things, and they ensure that the companies they work with pay over the minimum wage, and they, what is unique to them. And then you can create the content which is specific to your audience.
Yeah. And then what you're saying is then we can look at these pieces of these key pillars, perhaps from a different angle or something, but we still don't venture into those areas which are irrelevant to them, because that's going to turn them off. They're going to be like, why the hell are you talking to me about this?
Yeah. I mean, there is a level of fluidity here. You choose your pillars, you stick with it, you've got to let it work for a while. And then 3 months, 6 months, you're going to look at your data and say, actually, it's either, it's not bringing in the leads we want, it's not attracting the people that we want. And you refine it, and perhaps you remove a pillar and put another one in. It's not a forever deal.
Yeah.
But you cannot talk to everybody. You really can't, because people won't listen. They need, and I think all of us feel, if a brand or a company speaks to us in a way that makes us feel seen and heard, and like, how did you know that was my problem? How did you know? Because you must have been listening in on a call. Those are the brands that we will listen to, the ones we will connect with. Now, that's not to say by being super specific in your content, you won't attract other people, because you naturally will. I have some specialisms that I work within, but that doesn't stop some other industries saying, you've been recommended, I want to work with you. It's not about that. It's just about refining the message we're putting out there so that people feel heard and seen.
Hot dang. Love it. For those listening along at home, I did not prep Shelly to say that, but that is one of my key messages I share with my clients and leads. Like, find a target audience, serve that target audience, because HR consultants have a habit of saying that they work with SMEs. And I keep saying to them, SMEs as a market doesn't exist. It exists in real life, but in terms of marketing messages, you can't create messages that SMEs will get hold of. They're just too variable.
No. It's a little bit how I talk to my clients about building their ideal client avatar. So we will naturally, you start with the demographics, and it's, you know, where do they live? What are their age? You know, what gender do they identify with? All of these things, but those are just facts. We all fall within those facts. If you go a little bit deeper, you get psychographics, and that's where the magic happens. That is what people feel about those facts. And that could be vastly different, even if the data, like the demographic, is the same.
Yes.
The psychographics, how they feel about those facts about themselves, completely different.
Yes, that's what I mean. I use a different way of talking about it, but it's exactly the same. What are they got? What are the pain in their life? What pleasure do they want in their life? What are they running away from? Where do they want to get to? Anyway, I love that you've said that. Because honestly, like, that is such a, it's difficult as well that HR consultants, they get scared about taking that message in. You know, they think, like we all did when we started in marketing, that when you choose a target audience, that means you can't work with anyone else, and that means that you know, you're lowering the market. But what you're actually doing is making things so much easier and so much better. Anyway, so yes, right. Fascinating conversation there, Shelly. Love it. Any takeaway tips for people listening along?
Yes. Think backwards and think forwards. So what I mean by this is you already have lots of content out there. Go back, see which long form content you've already written or recorded. What did particularly well? These are great pieces to start testing out your repurposing. Just have a go at it. Test out the tools. Get on AI. Give it a go. Those are already, everything that's existing.
Yep.
You can go back and have a look at. And when I say go forwards, get planning, get strategic, work out what your message is, and then plan what large pieces of long form content you're going to make, so that when they are filmed, written, recorded, you can then repurpose from that strategic place. So just because you may not be in a position now to be strategic doesn't mean you can't get on with repurposing and making, you know, your snackable content.
I guess one last question I love that. Thank you. That's really insightful. One last question, because you talked about putting those key quotes onto Threads and Blue Sky and X, whatever it's called now. I would say to my audience, don't bother unless their audience is on that platform and they want to build out that platform. I always say, like, just concentrate on one platform, because, you know, unless you've got a team, you're gonna not waste, but it's gonna cost you a lot of time. So just stick to one platform. How do you feel about that?
I agree to a certain extent. Yeah. We can't be everywhere. Unless we are a very large business, like you say, with a marketing team, we cannot be everywhere. We can create content for all the platforms from the anchor content that we create. That's fact. Our audience are also likely to be on multiple platforms.
Yep.
They use them differently.
Yes.
So I'll give you an example. I use Pinterest, but I don't pin business stuff there. I pin ideas for my daughter's bedroom. Because, you know, when I want to decorate or do something, that's where I go. I mean, I'm there, and if I'm someone's target audience, yes, I'm there, but I'm not using it for my business. You know, I'm on TikTok. I see a few business videos, but I'm mostly looking at how I make some kind of food. Facebook, however, I'm on for business, and I'm in the groups, and I'm networking, and I'm chatting. And your audience is no different. They may be on all the platforms, and you might look at the data and say, well, they're on all of these, but they're using them differently. So number one, consider how they use them differently. And then number two, consider which ones you like that fit your business goals. If you hate going on video, don't choose YouTube. Even if your audience are there, they will be somewhere else that you can use to a better degree. Pick the platforms you are comfortable with. And as you were saying, okay, so maybe, Blue Sky, Twitter is not the platform that you're on. That's fine. It's not just about the content you've got to think about. You have to be present on the platforms you're posting to. There is nothing more frustrating than seeing a brand online. You comment on the posts, you say you're excited about the brand, and it's crickets. They don't reply to messages. They don't reply to your comments. There's absolutely no point being on the platform if you're not using it as a community tool to chat with your audience.
Yeah, 100%. I see this all the time with like HR consultants who have a Facebook profile for some reason that they're linking to on their website, and it's so sporadically updated. I'm like, what is the point?
Yeah,
just close it down.
You are right. Choose one or two platforms and do them really well. At the end of the day, you cannot be an expert in everything.
Yeah,
and that's true of me too. Yes, I run the creation and the marketing agency, but I don't do every single platform myself. I can't know them inside out. I have a good working knowledge of all of them. But if a client comes to me wanting TikTok, I bring in a freelancer TikTok specialist who knows it inside out. And then we work together on it, because we can't know everything unless you use the platform all the time and, you're living in it yourself.
Fair play. Okay, love it. Well, we've kind of gone off topic a little bit when we talked about target audience, but we've brought it back to talk about where you should be posting your content, because you can feel overwhelmed, but you don't need to.
No. Just commit to doing regularly what you can do. If for you that is once a week, do it once a week, do it well, and show up. Don't try and do 3 times a week if it's going to stress you out. You can't keep up with your posting schedule, and then you drop off the cliff for a month at a time. Commit to less, do it well, and build yourself up.
Yeah. And use varied. Use a variety of content types, right? So we've got the written word, we've got the video, we've got the audio.
People learn in different ways.
Yeah.
So it's great for some, I will listen to a podcast on my walks in the morning. But when I sit down at my computer, I'm not going to do that. I'm probably going to watch a video of them or read a blog. We all learn different ways, but also at different times. So you're linking back to your work you do with their audience. Are they on the school run? Is that a good time? Do they consume your content that way? Is it in the sofa in the evening? You can think about those more minute details to help you figure out which ones to go for and what to do.
Perfect. Well, thank you for coming along today, Shelly. Really great chat. Tell me, where would someone go to find out more about you?
So 2 places. I'm on social media as at Sheldon Social, and that is on all the major platforms. And my website has sort of all my blogs and all my articles and all the links that people will need. That's www.sheldon.social.
Sheldon.social. Okay. .com?
No. The .social is instead of .com.
Oh.
That's the end part. It looked very, very neat, and I loved it until I realized that people might end up wanting to put .com on the end.
Well, yeah. I know a long time ago they changed it so that you could have anything at the end of your website, right? And I was like, okay, that sounds great, but my brain still thinks .co.uk, .com. Where am I going? So no .com, no .co.uk.
No.
Okay, Sheldon.social. Lovely. Right, fair enough. Well, Shelly, thank you for coming along today, sharing those wonderful insights. No problem. Anytime. Hopefully for those listening along, that has proven insightful and interesting. And thank you for listening along. As ever, get marketing, because without marketing, there's no sales. And without sales, there's no business. So get marketing.
Hey there, and thanks for listening to the Marketing Made Easy for HR Consultants podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, then please consider taking a minute to help us grow by sharing the episode with a friend or colleague, or by leaving a positive review on podchaser.com. And make sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the upcoming episodes if you haven't done so already. I've been your host, Nick Brinsky, and if you've got any questions or you want to know more about today's topic, then feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'd be delighted to hear from you. See you next time.